Morning. We're learning Christmas for Shlema Filan Chaya Baserach. We are on the top of Lamed Daled Amud Beis. We just said with Tefillin that you have to have a Ksiva Tama, that all the letters have to be precisely right, which is exactly the same thing we saw by Mezuzahs, in general by all Stam. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of Tefillin, the mysterious Tefillin that we wear every day. Second one, Ton Rabban, L'tei Tafais, L'tei Tafais, L'tei Tafais. Here says three times the word Tei Tafais, right? Kshatem Loisa Yedech Vahilu Tei Tafais Beininecha. Some of the Dvarela Lavavcha Nashim Kshatem Loisa Yedech Vahilu Tei Tafais Beininechem. Loisa Yedech L'tei Tafais Beininecha. The first two times there's no vav in the end of the between the pei and the saf. The last time I'm saying between the two tests. And the second time, the last one does have the extra vav. Hare Kandal. So you have the two regular taitafais or mechusar, the ones without the vav, and the one that has the vav, you count twice because it has an extra letter. So that gets you to four. That tells you Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Kiva Oima Ein Tzarech says not needed to learn the four parshias of a tefillin from the fourth mention from the three words of Teitafais. He says you learn it from a different thing. Tat bekafsi shtayim. The word tat, tes, is two in Kaspi, in the language of Kaspi, and pas ba'afriki is shtayim. And pas in African, and I guess in Swahili, is also two. So Teitafais, which is an amalgamation of those two words, is 2 and 2, which is 4. So we're going to see what this 4 means. What does it require? Tanaraban. Yochel yichtav amaldalad iris. I might think you should write the 4 parshias of tefillin on 4 separate parchments. V'yanichem b'dalad batim b'dalad iris, and you'll put it into 4 compartments made out of 4 separate skins. So we're just going to remind ourselves, we just see our tefillin, so we don't know what's going on inside of them. But the general way it works is that this is talking about the tefillin shel rosh. The tefillin shel rosh has 4 separate compartments. We see one big leather thing, but it really is, as we're going to see later, one piece of leather that gets shaped into 4 different compartments. And each one of those compartments inside the Shel Rosh has one of the parshias of Tefillin, which is Shema V'Hayim Shemaya, Kadeshli, and V'Hayi Kiviyacha. So that's what we're saying. Yachal Yichtavim Al Daled Iris, V'Yinichim B'Daled Batim B'Daled Iris. How do we know that it all has to be the Tefillin Shel Rosh has to be? We'll see about the Tefillin Shel Yad is different, but Tefillin Shel Rosh that it has to be. How do we know it needs to be 4 separate compartments that are all made of one skin? Maybe you make 4 compartments out of 4 separate pieces of skin, and you put the 4 klafim, the 4 parshias with a klaf in each separate one. Talmud loymalu zikarim beinenecha, zikarin echad amarti l'cha, v'loy beis v'dal zikaris. I told you it has to be 1 zikarin and not 2 or 3 or 4 in this case. Okay, so how do you have both of these things? We say it's supposed to be beinenech zikar nechad, and we also say teitafas you need 4. How do you have both of those objectives? Kaisvin al dalid iris. So you do put the 4 parshias for the tefillin shel rosh on 4 separate klafim, 4 separate parchments. Omenichim b'dalid batim ba'oir echad, and you put them in the 4 compartments that are made up of 1 piece of leather. So the leather is there's 1 leather, you shape it into 4 compartments, and you put the four parshias in it. So that we're satisfying the need for zikar nechad by having 1 piece of leather, but everything else is separated. The other 2 things, the parshias as well as the compartments, are made the compartments are made into 4 separate compartments out of that 1 piece of leather, and you have 4 separate parishes in each one. Sagt die Gemara, wenn Kosvam ba'oyer echad, v'nicha v'dal batim yatzaf. If instead of making four separate parchments with the parshias on them, he made one parchment, and we said that they're four separate parshias, four separate compartments. So how do you put something with on one cloth into four parchments? So the Mefarshim explained it's talking about that they're connected, the parshias are connected on the bottom, and then they extend into the different compartments. That means the compartments don't go all the way to the bottom necessarily. There could be space between the bottom of the tefillin and the compartments. So they're connected through there, and he just like loops it in, or he cuts it and he sticks it in each parsha into the separate compartment. Sagt Gemara, "B'tzarach sheyeh revach beinein." Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says you have to, in addition to them being in separate compartments from that single parchment, they also have to have some space between the compartments. That means you can't have all the compartments squished together when you're doing it with a single parchment. They say it's not necessary as long as they're separated by the physical leather compartments of the tefillin. It's good. But even if the Chachamim would say there's no need to have a space, you have to have either a string or a rope between the compartments. Very hard to understand exactly what that means. Rishonim have different shittas. So it's either they're going back to what we said that you have to leave a space, it's saying how much that space has to be. It's actually a Rebbe Chanan according to the Chachamim, according to Rebbe, or is it saying that you have to put between the compartments an actual piece of string to separate it? Okay. Sagt the Meravite that ein charitza nikar psulas. If you look at your tefillin, right, it has on your tefillin shel rosh, it has four grooves. There's three grooves actually. It has grooves showing where those grooves indicate where the compartments are separated. So if you don't have that indication on the outside of the compartments, it's not just the thing that's going on behind the scenes. It has to be recognizable from the outside that there are four compartments. So you have those scratches, those grooves, to show where the compartments are. Turn around button. Case of Kais and Tila Shel Yad. Until now, we're talking about the Tefillin Shel Rosh, which is made up of four separate compartments. How do you write the Tefillin Shel Yad? Kais v'alar echad. You write on one single cloth. Then Kais v'arba iris. But if he put it on four separate iris, v'nicha b'bayis echad, and he put them all into the single tefillin, the single tefillin Shel Yad, Yotza, he's Yotza. V'tzarach l'dapik. However, he was Yotza, he could be Yotza by having separate parshias on separate klafim, on separate parchments, but he has to attach the parchments. Even though they're separate, they're really supposed to be written on one piece of parchment consecutively, one after the other. If he does them separately, he could be Yotza, but he has to attach them. The tefillin shel yad does not have any compartments in it, and the outside is smooth because there's no indication of different compartments. So just like it looks like one thing from the outside, it also has to be one on the inside. The parshas have to be one. Rabbi Yossi says no. He says he agrees that l'chatchila you should have a single parchment for all the parshias of the shel yad, but he says if you don't have it, even if you're not medavik, even if you don't attach it, it's still yotza b'diah. Rav Yossi umaydeli Rabbi Yehuda b'Rebbe she'ein lo tefillin shel yad, that if he doesn't have tefillin shel yad, v'yesh lo shnei tefillin shel rosh, and he has two tefillin shel rosh. So the tefillin shel rosh, like we said, is four compartments. The tefillin shel yad that he's missing has only altogether. She'toila ar alachas mehen omei nicha. What he could do is You have to make it that it looks from the outside as one. So he takes a another piece of leather. He uses that leather to cover over the tefillin shoroish with the charitzin indicating different compartments. And now you have a tefillin all of one that are all looks the same. You put another layer on top of the tefillin, so now it all puts it together, and it's good. So Rabbi Yossi is saying that even though in this case that these are tefillin shel rosh with four separate parshias, so you see that he's saying that Rabbi Yossi is moeded to him. That Rabbi Yehuda is moeded to him because Rabbi Yehuda had said you have to b'diavad. It's not yotze. Even b'diavad, it's not yotze if you have separate parshias. But the tefillin shel rosh always has separate parshias. So tomorrow, moida, haina plutaya, that's what they were arguing about. What does it mean he's moida to me in this case? This is the case that they were arguing about. You're saying he's moida, you're saying he doesn't disagree. Rava says from that which Rabbi Yossi said, you can see that Rabbi Yehuda was chayzer. Eina chanami, Rabbi Yossi was saying that Rabbi Yehuda backed off of his shita. And everyone agrees that you can put together, b'diavad, you could use four separate parshias, because you see that in this separate memra of Rabbi Yossi, he said that you could cover over the tefillin and the tefillin shel rosh with its four separate portions, sections, and make it into one, even though you still have four separate parshias. Is this true that you could do this? Now we're talking about the second thing that Rabbi Yossi said, that Rabbi Yehuda's moida, that you could take a tefillin shel rosh and cover it with a leather. So from the outside, it now looks like a tefillin shel yad without any charitza, without any indication of separate parshias. But we have a different problem with doing that. If you have a tefillin shel yad, you can make it in a tefillin shel rosh. I guess you take it apart and you make you take apart these four separate compartments and you make it into one compartment, and then you put you take the tefillin shel yad, you make four separate compartments. I'm sorry, you're turning it into a shel rosh, and you take four separate. Maybe you cut apart the cloth, or you take a different cloth, you cut apart the cloth, and you make it into four separate cloth. But the other way you can't do. Why can't you do that? Because you're not allowed to take something that's a tefillin shel rosh, which is a kedusha chamor, and turn it to shel yad, which is a kedusha kala. So let's see Rashi about what's the kedusha. Why is kedusha of the shel rosh more than shel yad? Right? We would assume that they're the same. So Rashi, sheruba shel shakai nasa b'shel rosh. Right? We know that the tefillin has the Shem Hashem of Shakai on the tefillin. It has the shin written onto the shel rosh, and the dalid and the yud are made out of the leather. So nasa b'shel rosh, the shin is shel shin, dalid, shin dalid, ava b'shel zroya ein le'ela yud. Right, the shel rosh has the shin written on it, plus it has the dalid by the kesher, and the zroya only has the yud of the kesher. So it has more by the shel rosh. So he says it's the excess amount of portions of shakai that's why it's shel rosh. The Torah also says Ro Kalami Aretz Kshem Hashem Nikra Alecha V'Yorah Mimeka. Ro Kalami Aretz is talking about the tefillin shel rosh. So that's another reason why it's kaddish. So in any case, but we see that you can't change a tefillin shel rosh into shel yad, and that was the member that he said before. That technically, he said Rabbi Yehuda's moed to me. So if he doesn't have tefillin shel yad, you could cover it over with a piece of leather and convert it. We just said that you're not allowed to convert a tefillin shel rosh into shel yad because you're lowering its kedusha. So kasha haba tikta ha bechadita. That which we say that you can't change it is talking about a tefillin that was already used, an old tefillin, so to speak. Once it was used, it was actually imbued with that extra kedusha. The kedusha is not inherent in the tefillin; it comes from the yidden, from a yid doing the mitzvah with it. That's what brings it to its full kedusha. But a kedusha chadata, a brand new tefillin, does not yet have that kedusha, and therefore it can be converted. So tomorrow, Lamanda Amar Hazmana Milsihi. What about according to the Manda Amar that once you designate something, it already gets its full status, so the kedusha should be there right from the beginning. So it's talking about where he made the tefillin, and he said, "Listen, I'm still going to decide." He didn't really make a hazmona. He said, "I'm still deciding whether it's maybe I'm going to convert it into a shel yad." So that's where Rabbi Yosef Yehuda say you could do it. But Einachanami, if you didn't make a t'nai at the beginning, if you hold Hazmana Milsi, it would be a problem because it would already be a Kedusha Chamura and you wouldn't be able to convert. Tana Rabba, Kesed Sidron. What is the order of the four parshas? That means there are four compartments and you put the four parshas in those four compartments. What is the order? This is, I asked my son a brain teaser. I said, I learned the most famous Machlekes Rishonim in Shas. And I asked him to guess what it was, and I gave him a hint. I'm learning Menachos. Still couldn't get it. I was very surprised. But this is the famous machlokes, Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, of what order the parshas are in the tefillin, which is why some people wear both sets of tefillin because of this machlokes. So Ketzat Sidron, what is the order? Kadeshli v'hayikviyacha miyamin, Shema v'hayim shemoya mismoya. So we're going to learn Rashi's pshat. The pshat, he says, the seder is first you do Kadeshli, and then V'haya Kiviyacha on the right, and then Shema V'hayim Shemaya on the left. In fact, the Marva Tanya Ipcha, we have a brisa that says the other way around. A Rabbi Lekasha, Kan Mimidish Akaira, Kan Mimidish Almeiniach. One is talking about the person who's facing the person wearing the tefillin. So you go from his right to the left. And the other one is talking about what has it the other way around is Mimina Shalmeiniach. It's talking about the person who puts it down from going from his right to left, meaning facing from the other direction. Kaira Kasidron. And the person who reads it, it's not exactly clear what this is saying. The person who reads it, they read them in the order in which it was said in the Torah, right? It says, we say, Kadesh li v'haya kiviyacha, where are those psukim? I don't remember. Kadesh li is in Shemois, in Parak Yud Gimel, and then v'haya kiviyacha is in Parak Yud Aleph, then Shema, I don't know, so that would be, no, it's, all right, no, this is also in Parak Yud Gimel, but later on, Kadeshli, and then it also has Kayev Kiviyachas immediately following that, in Shemais, then Shema and V'hayim Shemaya, both in Dvarim, so you're reading it all in the order in which is said in the Torah. So this is the machlokes, though, is when we say, I think the machlokes is in the order of between, that's the way Rashi understands it, that he says, when it says Kadeshli and V'haya Kiviyach are on the Yamin, and Shema and V'hayim Shemaya are on the Smile, he says that that you flip around V'hayim Shemaya and Kadeshli within their group, or at least one of them. So he ends up with a different word.
So
I'm sorry.
All four parshas are in the same order as they appear in the Chumash.
Well, according to Rashi, that's what it means. He says that when when you're talking about the person who's reading it, he's going to read it in the proper order, right? You're doing first Kaddish Lila v'haya kiviyacha, and then Shema v'hayim Shemaya v'haya. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, and then Shema v'hayim Shemaya. So that is the order of the Torah, and the person looking at the tefillin will be reading it in that order. Rabbeinu Tam says that when you say that the Kaira, when that Shema v'hayim Shemaya, I'm sorry, Kadshi and v'haya kiviyacha are on the right, and the other things are on the left. It shouldn't mean that you go in order. He says that they mean it's I'm not going to say because I'm going to get it wrong. I don't somehow I have a problem with the rights and lefts. So that's the way I think that's the way I think it means according to Rashi. We'll leave Rabbeinu Tam for when we learn Taisus, if you'll forgive me, because I want to finish the Amud. I mean, we could take a quick look. Let's see. Kaira Kasidri. Let's see the Taisus quickly. Pirsh Bekuntras. Keseda Shen Ksuvim B'Torah Mukdam Mo'ocha Mo'ocha Hilka Hadik Tani Le'el Kadesh V'Haya Kibiyacha Miyamin Miyamina Shel Kaira Kama. It means the person reading, he looks from his right. Vash Kaira Kedarkai Miyamina Lismailai Nimtza Kaira Kasidri. He's reading it in the proper order. Kashal Rabbeinu Tam. That my palginu shekaira shtein harishonis miyamin v'chol ha'achronis mismoil. Why did he divide it up in the two on the right and the two on the left? He should have said it would have been more sensible to say the first one is on the right and the rest are all on the from the left. Ayibcha, the Gimel Rishayis Mimin, Revius Misma. K'may Gabi Ner Maravi de Perek Shei Alechem, Lav the Neres, Mizrach Amar V'Tayim V'Dechsev. So therefore, he says when it says you go from the left, it means that you start from the left and you go toward that direction. So therefore, he will end up flipping, I think, the Shema and V'Hayim Shemaya. I think that's the way I understand what he's saying. That's what I think Taisus's Rabbeinu Tam's sheet is. We'll go weiter. Amar Chananel Amar Rav. Hechlef Parshioseh Psulos. If someone changes the order of the tefillin, it's not kosher, and this is the reason why people wear the Rashi Rabbeinu Tam, because it's not just l'chatchila, it's b'diavad. You're not going to be yotze if you do it incorrectly. Amar Abai Aloy Amaran Ela Geviyasa LeBraisa Braisa LeGeviyasa. Abai says this that we said that a mistake is going to ruin it. That's only if you mix up. There are 4 parshias. There are 2 on the outside, toward the outside edges of the tefillin, and 2 on the inside. So he says that's the important placement is whether it's an inside placement or an outside placement. As long as something that's supposed to be on the inside is on the inside, even if it's in the wrong slot, it's still kosher. And same thing with the outside ones, the 2 outer ones. Why do we say if you mix up something that's supposed to be on the outside with something that's on the inside, that it's no good? That the one that was supposed to see the outside, so to speak, that's supposed to be facing the outside, is seeing it, and the one that's and you placed it to a place where it doesn't see the outside, and vice versa. Even if why are you making such a distinction that whatever was facing the outside has to remain on the outside, but as long as it's on the outside, it doesn't make a difference whether it's on the left side or the right side. The same way it was supposed to be seeing the outside, it was also supposed to be seeing the right side. The right that Kaddishi was supposed to be on the outside on the right, and V'Hayim Shemaya was supposed to be Shema was supposed to be on the left. Ella Loishna. He says it makes no difference. Any mistake, any change is going to passel. V'amar Chanan al Rav, Titura de tefillin. Titura, so there are really three parts of the physical tefillin, meaning not the parshias, but the leather box, right? There's the actual box that the tefillin are inside of, and then there's a flat rectangular section underneath, right? There's a front section right underneath the box, and then there's the back section that the straps go through. So the top part is called, I think, the kitsaidi, it's the kitsua. The part that we're talking about now, the titura, is the rectangular shape underneath the square, and the mavarta is the part that the ritzuas pass through. So Rav Chanan Amarav says, Titura de tefillin halacha l'moshe misinai. The requirement that you have a titura of the tefillin is a halacha l'moshe misinai. You must have it. Amar Abaya, mavarta de tefillin halacha l'moshe misinai. He says the part that you pass the ritzuas through is also halacha l'moshe misinai. For Amar Abaya, shin shel tefillin halacha l'moshe misinai. The shin that you have on the box on the top of the tefillin is also halacha Moshe Sinai. V'tzarach, another din, v'tzarach she'agiach chritz l'makam ha'tafar. The grooves have to reach all the way to the bottom of the box till it reaches where the box is stitched to the titura. Has to go all the way to the bottom. He disagrees. He says as long as the grooves are recognizable, that you could tell that there's different compartments, that's sufficient. That's a kosher tefillin. V'amar Abaye, high kilfa de tefillin. This parchment of the tefillin, tzarich lamidvikei. You have to check it. The dilma espereusa ubeina ksivatama. Maybe it has a hole in it, and we say we need a ksivatama, so you have to check that there's no holes. The lepa. If it has a hole, it's going to be missing the requirement of ksivatam. He says when the sefer is writing it, if there's going to be any holes in the parchment, his pen will get caught in the hole and he'll recognize it. Vaistais, that a hole in the cloth will not take away from the ksivatam. That means if it's not on the writing, the pen, I think, would only touch it if it's where he writes. So you see that a hole elsewhere in the parchment will not passel the tefillin. Amar Rav Yitzchak, Ritzuas shechayres halacha l'maish misinai. The necessity for black straps is halacha l'maish misinai. Meisvi, tefillin ein kosher say ela b'minon. The tefillin the straps of the tefillin can only be tied with straps made out of the same substance as the tefillin themselves, which is leather, right? But ben yeroikus, ben shchayris, ben levinus adumis, ben yeroikus, ben levinus. They could be whatever color. It could be either green or black or white. But adumais lo yasa. You can't make red. Mitnei gnai. First of all, because it's embarrassing to the person wearing it. Someone who sees him will think maybe he's bleeding and it got on his ritzuas. The davar achar, as you can imagine, davar achar, Rashi says, is referring to dam nida. That maybe there's dam nida. We don't want to express this. It's such a bizarre thing, but maybe people think there's dam nida on his tefillin. Amravi, so it's a kasha, right? But the first part first is, well, let's see. Amravi hu the ma'isa b'tamid shebekiva shaya kaisha tefila b'l'shayna shel tchelas v'loy amaloi davar. And he didn't tell him anything. He said it could even be made, the straps don't have to be made out of leather. He saw that the student, that he was wearing it with blue wool. And we just said it has to be made out of the same thing as the straps have to be made out of the same thing as the tefillin. How could you say that Allah is that it has to be made out of leather if he saw his Talmud making it out of tchelis? They say, yes, it could be such a thing. First of all, maybe he didn't see what tefillin he was wearing. He was busy davening himself. Had he seen him, he would have stopped him. Similarly, same thing. He was wearing tefillin with straps made out of a purple wool, and he didn't say anything to him. After I said, his son, he didn't object to him. We said if you did, maybe your Talmud you don't see, but your son, you certainly are responsible to check how he's wearing his tefillin. He didn't see him, and had he seen him, he would have stopped him. Katani miya. Okay, so that we dealt with the problem. How are they using non-eligible straps? The Einachanami, you do have to have leather straps, and all these examples were just that they made a mistake. They did the wrong thing, and no one saw it. Miya ben Yerakis ben Chaz ben Levinus. Katani miya ben Yerakis ben Lechayish ben. We said it could be any color, and we had said it has to be black. So that which it has to be black, like we have, right? We have black on one side. The other side we leave plain without anything on it. The other side, you can make whatever color you want, other than red. Zakamara, imi bifnim, my gnai v'davar achi. If we're talking about the side, right? When you wear your tefillin, you have to make sure that the black is facing outwards. You thought that people are just hacking you a cup about this. Your Rebbe, when he told you have to do it, but that's why you put it in. That's why you put it into the gartel or the belt to hold it down, because it's supposed to be the black is the only thing you see. But once that's the case, why do we care if it's red? You're not going to see it anyway. So zimin mishaptenle. Sometimes it flips over in spite of all your best efforts, and then when someone will see it, it'll be a genai. Tana. Tefillin murubais halacha l'maishem misinai. The fact that tefillin have to be a square shape is a halacha l'maishem misinai. Amar Papa, betafron. When we say it has to be square, it doesn't just mean the top surface of the tefillin that has to be square, but in addition, it has to also be where it's tied. We said before, like the charitzim have to go down to the where it's so stitched together. Also, at the base of the tefillin, the base of the box also has to be square. I think this is just like an Eitz Taiva, or the way you determine that they're square is by looking at the hypotenuse. You always can tell that it's square by measuring the sides, and then you measure the hypotenuse. And Rashi gives the formula for the size of the hypotenuse as the diagonal as compared to the sides to make sure that it's square. And this is actually what carpenters do, right? When carpenters want to square something, they measure the diagonal between the two edges, and that's how they know that if you ever look, when they're building a room, they'll measure the diagonal to tell them that the two walls are square to each other. Lein misayele. I bring a raya hoisa tfilos of agula sakana ve'eba mitzvah. Someone who makes his tefillin round, it's sakana. Rashi explains what's a sakana. That if someone bangs into the tefillin, if you have a flat tefillin, someone bangs into the tefillin, they were spaced out, it will be a flat surface, it won't hurt him. But if it's round, it can bang into it could penetrate his head to some extent. So it's dangerous. The Eva mitzvah, he's also not yetz his mitzvah. On top of everything, not only is he getting a concussion, but he also wasn't yetz the mitzvah. Mm-hmm. So you see a raya that has to be square, round is no good. Marapapa masis navide ki amguza. No, that which we said that he can't do it round means round like a ball, that it can't have a protrusion on the bottom, that where it's round, the whole thing is round and the bottom will go into his head. But we're saying it has to be square, even if the bottom is flat, you can't make it, like a strimel on top with a flat bottom and going around. So that's what we're saying, even that, it's not going to be kosher. We wanted to say the extra chiddush, don't make it round, because not only will you not be yotze, you're also going to kill yourself. It was like a Eitz Taiva. Amravuna, tefillin kozman she pnei tavla kayemes ksheru. He said, as long as the face of the tefillin is good, it's kosher. Meaning that even if the inside, right? We said that the tefillin shorosh is made up of 4 different compartments. Even those compartments get damaged, as long as the outside is still intact, it's kosher. Chizda Amar, he says it's not so fast. It's not always going to be the case. Nifsaku shtayim ksheres einach nami. If there's two pshatim in Rashi, either the two of the compartments or two of the walls separating the compartments are broken, it's kosher. Sholosh psulos. But if three of them are broken or ripped, it's possible. Amarava hada amrit shtayim ksheres. That would you say it's kosher with two. That's if they're not adjoining. Psulas. If they're one next to each other, then they're possible. That which we said, that it's possible if there are two next to each other, that's only by new tefillin. Al vatika, less lamba. By tefillin, that means we're understanding that these problems of these holes and these flaws are that it indicates that this was a bad, there's something wrong with this leather, this whole hide, and I guess more flaws will develop quickly. If it starts off when you put it together and then you see these holes, so you assume that it's the built-in weakness of the leather and there's going to be more. But if it's an old one, that's normal for holes to develop over time. It doesn't indicate necessarily that more will be coming soon. Amalei Abayel Rabbi Yosef, Heichi Damin Chadten veHeichi Damin Atikta. How do you determine whether it's old, new, and old? Amalei Kol Heicha Ki Misli Blei Bishalcha v'Hadar Cholam Atikta. Whenever you pull at the tefillin, meaning at the leather boxes, at the actual tefillin, and it will go back to its shape, that's an old one. I guess we would think normally it gets more pliable as it gets older, but he says no, it gets hardens as it gets older. So if it goes back to its shape, that's an old one. But if you pull it and it doesn't go back to its shape, that's a new one, and that will be possible if you have two holes or three holes or two next to each other.
We're talking about what, Ritzuas or the boxes?
The bottom.
The bottom.
They had different bottom than us. Their bottom were much more flexible than ours. They did not have our procedure for hardening them. Now, it's very hard to understand how you could have something that's flexible, but also is the exact precision of square. You'd think that something to be so square, like we have it for sure, and at the same time being flexible is almost contradictory. So I can't really imagine how this was, but they had more flexible tefillin boxes than we do. So you could pull it and it would come apart and then go back, spring back into shape. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like when you look at our tefillin, you can't pull it. It's not going anywhere. It'll just break apart, if anything.
Right.
V'nami kol heichedichi misli bei b'matana asin abasrei. So now we're talking about the straps. If he pulls it by the strap, and it's two people are pulling in a different direction, asi abasrei, it can stretch without breaking. Chadata, that's a new one. But if it cracks, the strap will break if you pull it too far, then it's atika. So the straps is obviously different than the actual tefillin itself, because we're saying it's the opposite indication. The first one we said that if it goes back into place, that makes it that if it goes back, that means that it's new. And now we're saying that it could be pulled and it's flexible. That's new. But obviously the straps and the bias are different. Okay, I think we'll stop over here. I think this stuff is interesting. Like we put on these tefillin, I think it's very nice to know